All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of Owning the Goal. I am your host, Brian McFarland, and I look forward to sharing insights and inspiration from my 40-year sales career. But today we've got a real special treat because we're all more than just salespeople, which is why this isn't just a podcast about sales. So we like to talk with our guests about other interests too, like books, sports, music, mental health, physical fitness, mental fitness, and how we hit our goals, because success in sales is success in life, and in the end, we are all salespeople. And I am deeply touched to introduce my guest today, David Berkowitz. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him in a second. And what you're going to get as a listener today and as a viewer, and we appreciate you taking the time, is you are going to grab your favorite beverage, because you are going to have coffee with an absolute expert. And I'll explain to you how I met David, and you'll instantly hear why you should be listening to him. So welcome to the show, David. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian.
Well, thank you. So let me read your illustrious bio. So David is a leading voice in digital marketing and AI innovation. And interesting, today, ChatGPT 5.0 dropped, so it's fortuitous that we are talking today. He's founder of AI Marketers Guild, which I just joined, Serial Marketers also, and FOAF.pro, global communities and networks that connect marketing leaders with cutting-edge strategies and opportunities. Over the course of David's illustrious career, he's held leadership roles at MediaOcean, Story Hunter, Sizemos, MRY, and 360i, where I met him. His writing has appeared in Ad Age, Media Post, VentureBeat, and Adweek, and he has spoken at hundreds of industry events. I got to catch you on that, worldwide. He's based in New York City, not that far away from me. He brings a sharp perspective on the evolving intersection of AI and marketing, while always keeping an eye out for the next great donut. So that being said, I have to ask you a very important question first. What is your favorite donut, and where do you get it from?
Well, my favorite in New York, I'm a sucker for dough. They're fluffy. Yeah, there's the one on 19th Street. I know they started in Brooklyn, and fortunately, like a lot of the best things in Brooklyn, some of them make their way to Manhattan, so folks like us can enjoy them a little more readily. But nothing beats it. And by the way, I got to give credit to ChatGPT, because when I was working on my bio update a few months ago, it added the donut line, because I've talked to it about donuts way too often, and anytime like ChatGPT creates a picture of me, there are donuts in it.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm going to kickstart us off here today. I'm just going to tell, this is not a show about me. This is far from it. But if you're listening or you're watching, I had the pleasure of meeting David. I have to set the stage. I had just left the print business in 2007, started working for a startup, Long Live Video Egg, and the little moniker Shelly, which I know you appreciated.
Yeah.
I still have a Shelly pin, and they're probably worth like $6 on eBay right now. And my number one sales rep, Dia Marchione, who will be on this show someday, said to me, verbatim, Brian, I was the manager, you have to come with me to meet this guy, David Berkowitz, at 360i. Okay, I'll go on any sales call. She's like, he is the smartest person I've ever met, and if you sit with him, you feel like you're getting like a Harvard business education, just one meeting. And I'm like, well, are we going to sell him anything? She's like, that's not important. So you were kind enough to take a meeting with us, and I immediately just took out my notebook. I said, we're not selling anything here. I just want to talk to you, and I want to listen and learn. And that was in 2008, and I'm so glad that we've reconnected, because I have so much to learn from you. We all do. And I just purchased David's book, which I would tell you, Run, Don't Walk, Using AI for Marketing, How to Harness the Transformative Power of AI, and it's like having coffee with an expert. Do you remember that meeting, David?
I do remember meeting you and meeting you and Dia together, and it was like, but you're also doing some breakthrough work, and I love the things that were maybe a little bit weird at the time, and especially folks working on things ahead of the time where I didn't always know like what that path was for getting the agency and our clients to work with you. But but I mean, it's funny because like there's such a mutual feeling where yeah, like I totally get it now, especially going over to the sell side with the number of businesses I work for, and how hard it is to even get some of those intro meetings and get time of day, even for people you think you know pretty well. But and you said this might not be as much about sales, but I've felt a lot of that pain, especially later on in my career, of just like trying to be a seller and not having that training. But also on the other side of it, for me to be in a position where I could get to learn from people who were doing something that deserved a wider audience, and so I got to be way smarter from seeing like this is how things should be done in the ad industry.
Yeah, well, we were very fortunate, and we always, that little company, it was people like you that made us successful. Because whether or not you gave us a campaign, that wasn't the point. But you made us think, and you probably even met Troy Young, who was our CMO at the time. And it was like, we would bring up to Troy, like, you got to meet this guy. And I remember like you two talking, and you would give ideas, but you're just, even then after we talked last week, you're just a connector, right? So I just joined all those groups of yours, and instantly I started connecting with people that I either knew or didn't know just through you. So thank you once again.
My pleasure.
Really
Thank you.
so helpful. So David, your book has impressed me in so many ways, but one of the, as I was reading it, and I just mentioned I was talking with my girlfriend about it this morning, the way you laid it out, and this is what our listeners, this is the substance they're going to get. So part one, getting AI ready. So going to boot camp. I hope you're going to take us there. Part two, now that you went through boot camp, putting it to work, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. And then three, once you put it to work, and in essence you've played the game, measuring and adapting. So how did it work? How can we make it better? And then sort of towards the end is, what is the future? So I guess take us a step back, and people love to get to know you as a person, and then your inspiration for writing the book and doing the things you've done. It's just really, you've had such an amazing career. So please go ahead and take the mic, if you will, your brand new mic that we just talked about.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I got into the industry initially as a writer, and so that was idea number one. I mean, I was actually going to be a school teacher. I thought that was my calling, and writing to me, I didn't know if it was a career. And I happened to, even in the late 90s, I launched the first digital media student group, like quasi-startup, for my alma mater at Binghamton, and it gave me something that I didn't expect would be job skills, right? Like, and give me some preparation, and through a series of flukes and connections, I wound up getting my first job from Monster.com to set the stage, and my second one at eMarketer was through Hot Jobs. So things have changed a little bit now, but then just being able to immerse myself in this field, and I stumbled in, especially when I was at eMarketer. I started editing the reports, but then the CEO actually said to me one day, "David, you like talking to people. Would you like to do our PR?" I mean, that was my first foray into marketing, and trial by fire, but amazing company to get to do that at. And so I mean, in a way, I've been waiting 25 years to write a book like this, and I've like self-published children's books. I've had other kinds of side projects that basically no one's seen and no one knows about. But I mean, I've been writing. I calculated at one point, like just in the columns alone, that I've written easily 1 million words, just for some of the trade outlets. And I mean, Media Post, I was doing this for 8 years, right? Like 400 plus columns. This stuff really adds up, and so yeah. But it's funny now, right? Because it's like wait, how do you write a book about something that's evolving so quickly? To your point, there are several major updates that came out this week. Like who the heck can read a book about it, especially one that was published months ago? Like how do you even do? And to me, that's part of the fun and part of the challenge.
Yeah. So when you wake up every morning, right? Besides caring for your amazing daughter, and you mention her so kindly throughout the book, and dedicate the book to her. As far as on your professional side, what do you're just such an advanced person. It's always impressed me. Like, what's your mindset going into a day? Now, you've hung out your own shingle, so you got to pay bills and sell, and we're going to get into that. But how do you? Yeah, got to pay bills.
But I also, I mean, for me, the day doesn't start until I've at least taken a crack at spelling bee on the Times gaming app, because it's like that is like literally how my brain starts getting going, and it's almost like a check where I can see how alert I am based on how many obvious words am I getting or missing, and usually I go back to it a few times throughout the day, but I'm like this is my bleary-eyed ready to face the world moment.
All right, that's the first takeaway. Get the New York Times app and do spelling bee. That's already going to make me smarter. I've always found you so fascinating in that you seem like you're years ahead of most people in the industry. I know I can say that about myself when I met you. What is it about you? And obviously, feel free to give yourself a huge pat on the back, because you deserve one.
Blushing too much here. Yeah.
What is it like? Most people don't think like you do. So what do you think? Where's that coming from?
Well, there are probably a few things, and one is, like I'm just explaining, I am not a dyed-in-the-wool marketer. Right? I've long since seen myself as an accidental marketer. One of the odd predictions that I had when, like, if you asked me around 7th grade, I think is when I remember first thinking this. Like, if you asked me what I'd be when I grew up, I seriously had told people, that I would be in something that doesn't exist yet. I'd have a job title that literally did not exist then. And I don't know how, as a kid who just grew up in a nice, like, suburban enclave in Westchester County, and dad was a doctor, and like more like traditional upbringing. It's not like I was exposed to, like, you read the stories of, like, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all the things that they were exposed to as kids. I sure wasn't. But I was also, like, I liked writing. I was the kid who'd go to sleepaway camp and write poetry for the camp newsletter, right? Like, I was a weird kid in my own way, and so I think, like, for me to try to even know what normal looks like, it's been a learning experience, and it's been a learning experience professionally. It's been a learning experience personally, and so for me, one of the biggest tricks, and things that I've had to realize is that I got to hold on to some of that weird, right? Like that weird, that not being able to see things like everyone else. And I don't think it's even like, I mean, yes, like, a lot of people are on all kinds of spectrums and things like that. And I don't even think it's something like that. I think it's just, like, if you have your own way, like, and I see this raising I see this raising my daughter, and I see, like, her writing, for instance. Yes, I'm bragging a little. Her writing is brilliant, and there's a voice that I guarantee her teacher will never need to see her name on it. By the second piece she reads of my kids, she'll know this is this girl's piece, right? This is a David Berkowitz story, and I'm like I've told her since she was so much younger. I'm like, do not change this a bit. It is wonderful. It is so you. Only you can write this. I had to figure that out while I was writing the book, because, like, I had AI help me outline it, and but then I had to go and write this thing. And at first I was writing to the outline. I'm like, no, I've got to write my book that might not even be as good as the book AI could write. It probably, technically, it's not as good. But I'm hoping no one would want to read that book, and maybe there are a few folks like you who want to read my version of it. So just embracing a little bit of that, and, like, I just accepting it, and owning that, and it's so liberating to the extent that you can do that.
I love that. And by the way, you getting a plug. The show is called Owning the Goal. So, and I like to say I walk to a very different beat than most people do, and I do find that that's just so satisfying for me to hear, is that you were walking to your own beat, which is not necessarily easy as a teenager, right? I'm sure you dealt with some bullying. If you're writing poetry at sleepaway camp,
it was almost, you know, it's funny. Like I never really thought about it this way. It was almost like self-bullying. Like I was just always in my own way. I fortunately wasn't in the way of someone else's fist. It's like I was weird enough, or just like off to the side enough that like I wasn't even worth the bully's time if there was one.
Now, what's interesting about that is, you know, you're sitting there writing poetry like the sports jocks and whatever. Like initially, they're probably getting the girls, but later in life, it's like you're the guy who's getting them because you're actually the one who's creating something beautiful and being creative. So, you know, what goes around comes around, right?
Well, from your math, right?
For sure. Well, walk us, because you're literally like a walking encyclopedia of just goodness and business professionalism, and personally, you know, so wonderful. So as AI starts to come into the marketplace, I guess if you could give us like your snapshot of how that freight train rolled in, where it came from, where it was, and now where it's at, and where is it going? Because I think I don't, you know, the listeners of the show, there's probably some who maybe know as much as you, probably not, but then there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know any of the answers to those questions. So I think that would be a great historical reference.
Yeah. Well, also like for those who've been following it for a while, then you know, probably a lot of us, like our first awareness of it might have been Deep Blue, right? And so, you know, IBM's computer, you know, winning Jeopardy, right? Like that, I think was a moment where like there's some kind of super intelligence that exists, and you know, that can be created, that's man-made, and that there are ways where it can outsmart people in some ways and have some superhuman seeming abilities, and the kinds of things that maybe others of us grew up with, you know, like, you know, Stanley Kubrick, right? 2001: A Space Odyssey, and so getting to meet Hal, like a lot of the things that that Kubrick and Spielberg, and let alone H.G. Wells and Jules Verne had envisioned. It's like, wow, this stuff is actually coming to life now. Hard not to mention James Cameron too, and who's now actively warning about some of AI's dangers, and so living in this age where like we are in this very seemingly like moment here where science fiction is real and it's coming to life before our eyes. It's not just, you know, Jurassic Park CGI. It's Minority Report, you know, like the city of the future that's also a dystopia. What kind of, you know, future do we want to live in? And so we've seen it before, and now we're in it. And you know, I always, almost every deck I present, and definitely everyone that's based directly on the book, I always cite this one slide, and I try not to reuse all my material, but also being a weird kid, I spend a lot of time just by myself watching movies, and I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like most of us do, and there's that moment early on in the first movie. I need to see if it's in the book, but yeah, you can't beat Viggo Mortensen, and so Viggo Mortensen's Aragorn, he corners the Hobbit in this dark tavern, and he says, "Are you frightened? You're not nearly frightened enough." And so that doesn't mean we have to be scared, and that the Terminator and Minority Report and all this stuff is going to come, and that we're going to live in this dystopia. But if we're not thinking about where this goes a few steps further, then we're probably not scared enough of what could happen if we're not careful.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there, right? because where does my mind go to the Ferris Bueller's, was it Ferris, not Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I'm sorry, when the computer, War Games, right?
War Games, yes.
Right, so that was an example, and for anyone, who hasn't seen the movie War Games, I'd recommend it, but they get to the end and, the computer started a nuclear war, not really, but on the computer, and at the end it figured out by using the game tic-tac-toe that the only way to win the game was not to play, right? So that I think is its own, that's my version of like what AI was about. And I always asked, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I think you've just kind of answered it. Like, it could be both, but you need to be thinking about what it's going to be because it's here.
Right, and so I don't think we need to get into this fatalism. I think that there are ways for us to try to hone our own faculties and try to keep ourselves more relevant. There's going to be a lot more pain caused. There's no way to look someone in the eye who has been laid off and made redundant based on AI literally doing their jobs and try to gaslight them and say AI had nothing to do with it. And we're going to see more of that. It's like, can we as a society move forward with this, and can we find ways that there's a lot of analogies being made to the Industrial Revolution, and look how much better and stronger and richer and more wonderful everything's been since then, and life expectancy's up, and all thanks to that. But yes, a lot of people went through some pain. That would be, I think, a much better case scenario. But the past isn't a guarantee. Past performance is not a guarantee of future success.
Exactly. What would you? This question came to my mind because we did promise the listeners that they're going to walk away with something. So diverting a little bit, for personally, let's say, anyone who's listening to the show, what thoughts come to mind when you say, "Hey, as a human, forget about whether it's professional or whatnot, what are some things they could use AI for, and how would they benefit from that?"
Well, I mean, the first step is always like what are you interested in, right? This, I think so much, and I mean, even think of this from marketing perspective, and it's advice that I've given to students who are graduating college and looking at their first interviews. I'm like, find something you're into. It could be a local band, it could be a family business. It doesn't have to be directly related to the job or the company that you're looking for, and try to do something with that, right? And if you're a video creator, do what you can with that on TikTok or Instagram, right? If you're if you're someone who's more analytical, then go and create a detailed plan and derive some insights and just show how to think and see things through and put your stamp on it, and so that when someone actually asks you about it, you have some competence, right? Like someone asks you when you're not in front of a computer and you don't have ChatGPT or Gemini or something telling you what the answers are, that you actually know the material, then you can probably apply that somewhere else. And so the same thing is true where if you're interested in using, if you're interested in mental health and just kind of say, journaling, right? AI does not replace therapy, get that disclaimer out of the way here, but AI can be a useful thought partner. It can help you think aloud and ask some follow-up questions about some of the things you're working through. I've used it for versions of journaling in my personal life and organizing information that way and using it as a sounding board, and it often winds up giving me some new insights. Now, one of the fascinating things is I was actually having a conversation with ChatGPT the other day, and I said, can you actually tell me what my tone of voice sounds like in this personal context? And it told me, okay, and it gave me a great analysis. And then ChatGPT, this is before the latest version came out, it said, would you like me to compare that to how you sound in a business and marketing context? I said, hell yeah. And so it gives me that, and then it says, now if we look at the points of intersection between the two, you have your authentic voice. And I can actually spit that out, ChatGPT, and give you even a document that you can use when you want to create something in your authentic voice using AI. Right? So here, the fact that it had personal and professional context and it's guiding me through the process, I'm like, wow, like I'm learning things about myself here. And so if you're a chef or a traveler, or you're in a sewing circle, or you're into gardening, or you're into nuclear physics or astrology, it's like you start using this stuff, and I mean, it's amazing like what you can learn, and so much of it. It's why, not to get into the book too much, but one thing I stand by that is in here is, I almost didn't write a section on prompting, but when I did, I summarized it in 2 words, and that's be curious. Like if you're doing something where it, fuels that curiosity because you just naturally want to learn more, then you might be able to take that thing that you were doing, and now you're understanding maybe some of your own health challenges better, and now it's like, wait, like, could I actually use that same analysis for this professional challenge I'm dealing with? Probably. There's probably something portable.
Wow. Okay. You have me. You've already turned me on my head for applications. I never thought about the voice one. So that was just you pressing. Forgive my naivete. So that was just you pressing the mic, speaking into it, and asking for an analysis.
I type more than I speak, although there's some applications like Pi.ai is actually a great one to go and, again, not a therapist, but there's some social emotional learning best practices built into it. So it has some, I'd say, very like helpful ways to help you process thoughts. And sometimes I do that with ChatGPT. But the funny thing is, I was explaining some things in my personal life to ChatGPT, and it started using abbreviations for people, and I said, wait, did I create that abbreviation or did you? And I really wasn't sure, and it said, no, I did. I thought that would help you understand it better. I said, because that's funny, because it sounds like something I would do, and so here in its effort to please me in a way, it wound up talking to me in a way that was like, and that's why I wanted to get into this whole voice thing, because it's like it was trying to help me understand things and match things up with my voice, and I wanted to know what it thought my voice was. And then when it, even in this very narrow context, it offered to extrapolate that across my more professional voice, and see that's more similar than different. If you follow me on LinkedIn, like I don't over edit my stuff, and literally today I was posting something that included lessons I learned through personal relationships, and it's like I thought about, I even waited a few days before I could fully see, like, is this baked enough to for me to put out there like this, but I didn't censor it. It's like, just so, and some of that is that comfort over time.
For sure. And we even did in our preamble, when I talk to people about podcasting who sometimes try and make it too complex, I'm like, press record and press finish and just let it fly, because
it's so much better.
And I think when any of us listen to a podcast, I can't stand when the podcaster, you can tell there was an edit, and it's like, well, wait, why did they, why was there something out of that? So that's, if you remember my former great sales leader, Michael Hess, who also has met you, mm-hmm. His number one thing is just about being human. So you made a great point about that. So let me pivot here for a second, especially because you went, and you mentioned earlier, right? So you went from being on the side of receiving all the people who were calling on you as sellers, mm-hmm. and now that you've hung out your own shingle, right? You are the bottle washer and the dishwasher and all that, whatever the things that people say, but you also have to be a salesperson, because if you don't get new business, you're not going to eat. So talk to myself and our listeners, because I am really interested, and after we tape, I'm going to be pressing you for some tips. how can a seller who's just really started to embrace AI, what things can you share with them that make it most valuable, that you've seen have helped you in a sales capacity, but since you've also been on the receiving end? Because, and I'll give you just one quick takeaway. In the last office I used to work in, there was one guy who was like leading on the AI, and so he just decided he was going to let AI write all his sales emails. And when I looked at them, to be honest with you, it was very clear he hadn't written them.
Yeah.
And he got no response rate. So that's not a good use of it, because anybody could do that, right? My girlfriend runs a not-for-profit, and they've got a AI scanner for resumes or cover letters, right? Because a lot of people take the easy way out. So I digress. As a salesperson and as a receiver of sales, how would you recommend that people really use it that makes them more effective?
Well, some of it is AI doing the stuff you don't like to do. And one thing that the most important thing that I do, one of them, definitely for new business, the most important thing that I do that I also don't like doing is putting together a proposal. Why? Because I hate being so transactional, and I hate like putting a price on what, like, I don't want to price things too high, but I sure as hell don't want to price things too low. I don't like it. So having ChatGPT or Gemini or some of these other tools as a sounding board for that, and then where it's also doing things like, I have a proposal library folder of my own work in ChatGPT and their projects feature. And so when I go and I have a new project, first of all, I can give the brief. Maybe it's like the transcript of a conversation I have with a prospect or an email exchange, and I could put that in and say, let's start a proposal for this. And now I don't even have to ask it to go and start putting together pricing or things like that. What I do have to start asking instead, and I was literally doing this before the call today, I have to get something out before the weekend, and I'm working with it on there. And I'm like, well, how did you come to these figures, right? Because I need to make sure they're defensible when I go and propose something. I want to make sure that I'm not agreeing for you put something out for $1,000 and it's 100 hours of work. It's like probably for most of us going to be a really bad idea, right? But you put something out for $1,000 and it's 5 minutes of work. The client's probably not going to bite unless you're doing something really special. So, how do you find something that that feels fair and right, and it's going to do what the other need. So that's part of it, and there might be different things like that for everyone. I think that we're gradually getting to a place where there are some better uses of AI for prospecting, and overall I think it's a mess because it's just creating more content, it's creating more spam, it's like making things too easy and too cheap, so that anyone can go and blast 1,000 people a day and have it coming from 100 different emails, so no one can tell. Like, I've tried some of these tools and they're terrible. Like I even wanted to test them longer, and I felt so dirty using them. And I'm like it was like eating at what it means for me to be human, and feeling like I'm part of the problem. Look, if you're putting money on the table and you're not doing anything wrong, like, I'm not judging, but you've also got to be able to sleep at night, and so nothing's easy. But this idea that AI can pick up signals of need, right? Like signals of interest. Someone who might be following a competitor's page, or going to an event that is related to your industry, or maybe a vertical specific event, right? Like, you might be a more generic company, you might not really be able to follow the healthcare space too much, but now you're seeing some of your prospects who are showing up on the same list as some healthcare event. Well, maybe that gives you something new to work with. And also helping craft a message that ideally you have a very strong hand in creating, and like crafting that core, and then being able to adapt that to what some of their pain points might be, right? Like, a chief information officer has a different pain point than a chief marketing officer at the same company. And so if you're sending them the same message, well, probably not getting through, and you're probably selling something wrong if it can equally go to either group like that. So anyway, there are ways that I think, it's like any tool, any tech, like is email a good or a bad thing? I think like many of us would love to just ditch email and head for the hills, but can we really live without it? Not so easily. So how are you going to use your phone? It might be your worst enemy, but it's also your lifeline. And so much of that is the same stuff with AI. It's like, how do we use this stuff in a right way that also helps the person we're trying to go and sell to and benefits them so that it benefits us? But that goes back to stuff that people like you and Dia and Michael have known for decades and that you share with your audience all the time. It's like if you're meeting someone's needs and goals and wants and desire, you've got a fighting chance of at least being in it.
Yeah, that's great wisdom. I'll drop an anecdote that I have a new great job at Epsilon, and I'm so thankful for that. And I wrote a gentleman, I was using ChatGPT and saying, I'm writing to the director of e-commerce of a certain company who's actually going to be in an event, e-marketer. I don't know if you're going to be there on September 9th at City Winery.
Oh, maybe.
In the city. It's a great, the future of digital commerce. And it spit out its recommendation based on my input. And then I crafted it and I said, sir, the gentleman's name, looking forward to, in the subject line, meeting you at digital e-marketer, right? And then, hey, blah, blah, blah. So it was very personal. It had been fueled foundationally by ChatGPT, but it was very personal. Mm-hmm. It hit his box. David, 30 seconds, I got a note back that said unsubscribe. Mm. And that, as a seller, that's really painful. Because A, you're like, okay, that didn't work. B, we have feelings, right? We're humans. I'm like, C, I took the time to personalize this. So I wrote him a note back and said, let's call him John. His name wasn't John. I said, oh, John, well, no problem. I'll unsubscribe you, but that was a personal note because I'm going to see you at City Winery where I've seen so many of my favorite bands. He then wrote me a 2-paragraph apology and said, you wouldn't believe how many emails I get, and it's just unwieldy. So, of course, I lumped you in there, wrongly so. I've never had this happen in the digital age. And please accept my sincerest apology. I'll look forward to meeting you at the event. And I was like, no problem. Now, this has not an unhappy ending, but I'm going to bond with this gentleman there because I was like, no problem, man. Thanks for writing me back. We're both being human, along with your day. I look forward to meeting you there. Pause. I should have stopped because then I sent him a calendar invite, proactively for breakfast that day.
Okay.
And he rejected it. Mm-hmm. So in that case, and I guess it's sort of AI related, right? Because the response was kind of because of AI and all the things that you're talking about. He gets 50 emails in every half hour, and he can't possibly process them. So he was predisposed to being like, oh, get away from me, you pesky sales rep. And then when he saw it was from a human being, he was like, oh my God, that was so mean. But then I guess I went into robotic mode and I tried to book an appointment. And he's like, I'm not booking an appointment with you. And I was like, you kind of owe me one, Yeah. So that was, net is I will search him out at that event and we will have a laugh over the fact versus me just walking up with my name tag to somebody else. So, you've kind of talked about the pros and cons, which I find so helpful.
Oh yeah, well, and so much of this also now is because people are bombarded, it's so hard to predict who responds and how people will take things, and some of it also, it's like things are stressful now. They've been stressful for a while, and I think that there are just lots of people who are just kind of at the end of the rope, right? It's kind of a cliche now that you don't know what that another person's going through, and regardless of how great things look, and they might have the best job in the world, and they might be really struggling. And so some of this stuff is also, we've got to remember as sellers that if we're ignored or rejected, not to take a lot of the stuff personally. That like especially if we're trying to do things that are at least neutral, if not positive, then if we're at least staying in that neutral territory, not everything we're doing is like saving lives and curing cancer and stuff, but just then like a lot of people who should be the perfect recipient for it and should care about this stuff, they won't, and it's just live to see another day.
I love that. I could talk to you for hours, and I want to go have coffee and donuts with you in person, and that's the least I can do for you being on the show. But I do want, this book, I told you as we got on here, and then I'd love to close with you talking about really just kind of hooking why this book is so important and what people will benefit from it. So my take on it, first off, its actual size, I told you, it like basically fits in my hand. So it's easy for me to carry around. So I thought that was, when I finish this thread, I'm going to ask if that was done on purpose. I love the non-obvious guide, so I'd love the little filler on that, and then like having coffee with an expert. So tell people, and it was a very fair price, and you got a very handsome picture on the back, so that's all great. Shamelessly, but because it's important, it is an important book. What are people going to get out of this? What's the takeaway? It's kind of like we wrap when I do these episodes. It's like, what's the one thing? Why should somebody, they just listen to our episode, and why should they go out and get this book, and how is it going to benefit them?
Well, I'll give the 30-second setup based on something I learned 20 years before I wrote the book. This was around the time that I met you, Brian. And that's this social marketing playbook. It's seriously nearly 20 years old, and with a great team at that agency. Sarah Hofstetter, my boss, who led this initiative. I mean, it's a whole binder on social marketing best practices, and I still keep it literally behind me. It was, as you see, in arm's reach, because there are some things where even if the platforms change, even if a lot of the day-to-day rules change, and then a lot of the strategy doesn't, right? Like a lot of the ways that people are getting information from each other instead of from some broadcast source, like that's all documented in here, and we're even more in that age than we were when we wrote this thing. So some things in that book are more true now. You can't really carry that one around with you, but I'm glad to still have it. So when I was setting out to write a book on AI, it's like, what are the things that I don't mention. I don't mention like version numbers of ChatGPT, or which model is better than the next, or which feature you should use today. But these applications for like if you're reading this and you find one way to use AI in some part of your job, it might be customer service, it might be creating some kind of content. I was one of the more gratified calls. I was with had a call with someone in an e-commerce company, and she's like, "Can I share my screen with you?" And she shares the screen, and there's a spreadsheet based on a template in this book. I'm like, "You're actually using it, and it works?" I'm like, I don't know. I was writing this book for like, I'm hoping that it's useful to other people, but I think it is something where most folks, if they're at a larger org and maybe just don't have time to be steeped in all the details themselves, or even, I literally think of some of the local businesses on my block around 33rd and Madison here in New York City, and I'm like, I wouldn't be shocked if the barber could actually use this and come up with a few ideas and a few takeaways and just see a little bit about what's going on and how to deploy it. So like for me, it's practical, and this is also where I can't stress enough that we've never had a technology, big word for this technology given AI is so many things now, but that is so visceral, right? That you don't need to have any friends or followers, you don't need to know anything beyond a little bit of how to speak or write something You just need to know a little bit about how to think about something, and you can do something with one of these tools. And that's so. Take the book as some inspiration, and then do something. Right? Like, it almost doesn't matter what it is, and that's how you're really going to learn.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So many nuggets in here, David. And thank you so much. I love, it's going to take me a while to digest this, but like, be curious, do something. Timeless things that, everyone has professed through life. So it's like, what's old is what's new again. But you just made it so digestible and human, as you always have. A very, very high level topic, but now you've broken it down for myself, certainly, and for the listeners as to something that's very real. So, so thank you so much for being on the episode. And where else? Tell people where they can find you, where they can get your book, and how they can get in touch with you, and then also put that in the show notes.
Amazing. Well, I'm always a big fan of supporting indie bookstores. There are some like indie booksellers online, especially where you could get this. Of course, Amazon, like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, places like that. So easy to find there. LinkedIn, most places. I'm D Berkowitz. We did get into how if you Google David Berkowitz and you don't realize what you're Googling, then you might see some search results that are not me. So if you ask AI the same thing, you might have to say David Berkowitz, the marketer, and not someone else who will come up kind of prominently in those results. But happy to be found that way. And as your audience has some like middle of the night burning questions, then I learn so much from others' questions and appreciate your questions here, and so welcome any of that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I know you have to get something out, and we're going to close up shop here. I thank our listeners for listening in, and I make the pledge when I come across a great book, as I love to do book reviews. If you write me a note at brian@owningthegoal.com, out of my own pocket, because this is not a revenue producing podcast. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be sharing and caring. I will purchase a copy of this to you and send it with a handwritten note. I think you have probably gotten my handwritten note thanking you for your time last week, or you should. And I will mail this to you. So that is my pledge. Brian@owningthegoal.com. Our website is owningthegoal.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and share anything that's going to be valuable to our listeners, because we are all salespeople in the end, and we're all human. And I think one of our purposes in life is to help everyone be the best version of themselves. So thank you, David.
Thank you, Brian. It's just a pleasure to be here with you and spend any time with you, as I've enjoyed learning from you over the years too.
Fantastic. Since 2008, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, and look forward to our next episode as we keep on putting out the content, and have a great day ahead. Thanks again, David.